The sleek diplomatic vessel Harmony approached the massive space station that served as headquarters for the Galactic Council. Ambassador Park Ji-woo stood at the observation deck, her fingers pressed against the transparent viewing panel as the alien structure grew larger. The station resembled a massive silver lotus, its petals extending outward with lights flickering across its surface. "We're making history today," she said quietly. Her aide, Kim Do-hyun, nodded beside her. "The first humans to officially meet the council. My grandfather would never have believed this." The approach took nearly an hour as the Harmony followed specific flight paths designated by council traffic control. Ji-woo used this time to review her notes one final time. Earth had detected alien signals just 3 years ago, and first contact came shortly after. The Council had presented itself as a collective of peaceful spacefaring species who govern most of the known galaxy. When the Harmony finally docked, Ji-woo smoothed her formal diplomatic uniform and took a deep breath. "Remember the protocols," she told her team of 12 diplomats and scientists. The airlock hissed open to reveal 3 alien beings waiting to greet them. In the center stood a tall, blue-skinned humanoid with 4 arms who introduced himself as Director Morrow. On either side stood representatives from other council species, one resembling an upright feathered lizard, the other a short, stocky being with metallic-looking skin. "Welcome to Council Station Prima," Director Morrow said through a translation device. "We have awaited this moment with great anticipation." The delegation was escorted through gleaming corridors to their quarters. Along the way, Ji-woo observed dozens of different alien species, some nodding respectfully at the humans, others watching with what she interpreted as curiosity. The welcoming ceremony that evening dazzled the human delegation. The Grand Hall featured representatives from over 30 species, all dressed in their cultural finery. Holographic displays showed scenes from Earth alongside images of Council worlds. Foods compatible with human biology had been prepared by Council chefs. Director Morrow gave a speech about unity, cooperation, and the bright future that awaited humanity as part of the galactic community. "Today marks the beginning of Earth's ascension," he announced to applause. "Soon your species will enjoy the benefits of Council membership, advanced medicines, faster-than-light travel technology, and protection under our mutual defense agreements." Ji-woo listened carefully, noting the generous offers. When it was her turn to speak, she expressed humanity's gratitude and hope for friendship among the stars. Later that night, after formal discussions of preliminary trade agreements, Ji-woo sat alone in her quarters reviewing the day's events. The Council had been extremely accommodating, perhaps too much so. They had agreed to nearly all of Earth's requests without much negotiation. A soft chime indicated a message on her secure tablet. Opening it, she found an unmarked communication that had somehow bypassed the ship's security protocols. "Not all smiles are friendly. Watch for the teeth behind them. The Council fears what humans might become." Ji-woo reread the message several times before deleting it. Was it a prank from someone on her team? A test from the Council, or something else entirely? The next 3 days involved intensive meetings. Council representatives explained their governance structure, trade systems, and the requirements for membership. Ji-woo noticed that whenever she asked about military capabilities or other Council species that had declined membership, the answers became vague. During a tour of the station's scientific facilities, Ji-woo slipped away from the main group and found herself in a corridor marked with symbols she hadn't seen before. Before she could investigate further, she bumped into a small gray-skinned alien with large eyes. "You shouldn't be here, human," the alien said quietly. "This section contains biological research." "I got lost," Ji-woo explained. The alien looked around nervously. "Be careful what you agree to. Council membership comes with unseen costs." Before Ji-woo could ask more, her tour guide appeared, apologizing for losing track of her. The gray alien quickly disappeared down a side passage. On the final day, Director Morrow presented a preliminary membership treaty for Earth to consider. "This is just the first step," he explained. a gesture of goodwill between our peoples. As Ji-woo reviewed the document, something felt wrong. The translation seemed straightforward, but certain phrases held ambiguity. One section about resource sharing could be interpreted multiple ways. Despite her concerns, the political pressure from Earth was enormous. The human governments wanted this alliance. With cameras recording the historic moment, Ji-woo signed the preliminary document. That night, alone in her quarters preparing to return to Earth, her tablet chimed again with another anonymous message. They study what they fear before they control it. Humans adapt too quickly for their comfort. The treaties have hidden clauses. You have been warned. 6 months after Earth joined the Galactic Council, the initial excitement had faded. Captain Lee Tae-ho stared at the blinking red notification on his ship's control panel with growing frustration. His colony vessel, the New Dawn, carrying 800 settlers bound for the Proxima Centauri system, had just received its third-course correction order this month. Another delay, Tae-ho said to his navigation officer. They claim there's unexpected stellar activity in our path. That's strange, the officer replied, checking her instruments. Our sensors don't detect anything unusual in that sector. Tae-ho rubbed his tired eyes. The New Dawn had been in space for nearly 3 weeks longer than planned due to these mysterious redirects. Each time, the Council cited different reasons: space debris, regulatory inspections, or celestial events. The colonists were growing restless, and supplies would soon become an issue. Contact Earth Central. I want to speak with Director Choi, Tae-ho ordered. Back on Earth, Defense Director Choi Han-bin was already dealing with his own concerns about their new galactic allies. He stood in a secure underground facility beneath Seoul, surrounded by screens displaying data from the monitoring stations the Council had placed in Earth orbit as part of the Mutual Security Agreement. Play that transmission pattern again, Han-bin instructed the technician beside him. The screen showed unusual energy pulses emitting from the stations at regular intervals. According to the Council, these devices were simply observing space for potential threats to Earth. Han-bin no longer believed this explanation. They said these stations only receive data, he muttered. But they're clearly transmitting something. His assistant, Song Min-ji, approached with a tablet. Sir, we've analyzed the radiation signatures from the stations. They're scanning our military installations with a precision that goes beyond simple observation. Han-bin's face darkened. And our weapons systems. Our new Council-approved defense grid has backdoor access points we didn't design, Min-ji reported. We found them buried in the programming code. Han-bin made a decision. Contact Ambassador Park immediately. Use the old secure channels, not the Council communication network. That evening, Ambassador Park Ji-woo met Han-bin in an ordinary-looking noodle shop in an older part of Seoul. The place had no surveillance, and the owner was a former intelligence officer who could be trusted. You look troubled, Ji-woo said as she slid into the booth opposite Han-bin. The Council isn't what they claim to be, Han-bin replied quietly, passing her a small data device under the table. These are monitoring stations that monitor us, not space, and they've built weaknesses into our new defense systems. Ji-woo nodded grimly. I've been gathering my own evidence. Trade agreements that seemed favorable are actually restricting our industrial growth in key sectors, and Council advisors have been collecting human DNA samples far beyond what's needed for medical compatibility. She pulled out her own device. This was smuggled to me by a member of the Telleran species. They joined the Council 300 years ago and have been effectively reduced to a client state. Their resources are harvested while their technological development is stunted. Han-bin watched as she played a recording of a Council inner chamber meeting. The translation showed Director Morrow and other high-ranking officials discussing containment protocols for potentially disruptive species with dangerous adaptation rates. They're talking about us, Ji-woo said. Humans adapt too quickly. We solve problems in ways they find unpredictable. This frightens them. What about Captain Lee's colony ship? Han-bin asked. It's not the only one being delayed. All our expansion efforts are being subtly hindered, Ji-woo explained. The council doesn't want humans spreading too far or too fast. The shop owner brought them 2 bowls of noodles, then discreetly activated a signal jammer before walking away. There's more, Ji-woo continued. I've discovered that Earth isn't the first world they've done this to. The council identifies species with potential, appears to welcome them, then gradually restricts and controls them. Han Bin's jaw tightened. We need to warn the government. Carefully, Ji-woo cautioned. The council has supporters in high positions, people who've benefited from the initial technology transfers or who simply believe in the promise of galactic peace. As they finished their meal, Ji-woo's communication device buzzed with an urgent message. Captain Lee's colony ship had been forcibly boarded by council inspection teams, claiming to search for prohibited technology. It's starting, she whispered. They're moving from subtle control to direct intervention. Han Bin stood up. We need to establish a secure network of people we trust. Military, scientists, government officials who will listen. And we need to prepare for the possibility that the council knows we're onto them, Ji-woo added. They have eyes and ears everywhere. As they left the restaurant separately, neither noticed the small drone that hovered briefly above the building before darting away into the night sky. The attack began at dawn. People in major cities around the world woke to the sight of massive council ships hovering in the skies above them. They appeared without warning, their sleek silver hulls reflecting the morning sunlight as they positioned themselves over population centers. Defense Director Choi Han-bin was asleep when the emergency alarms blared throughout his underground command center. He rushed to the main control room, still pulling on his uniform jacket. Status report, he demanded. Council vessels have appeared in our atmosphere, sir, a young officer replied, her voice shaking. At least 30 major ships over our largest cities. Our early warning systems never detected their approach. Han Bin tried to activate the planetary defense grid, but the controls remained unresponsive. The monitoring stations that the Council had installed in Earth's orbit had silently disabled Earth's defensive capabilities during the night. Get me the president, Han Bin ordered. Communications are being jammed, sir. We can only use local channels. On the screens around them, footage showed Council ships deploying smaller vessels. These craft descended to street level where armored aliens emerged, setting up control points and announcing through loudspeakers. By order of the Galactic Council, Earth is now under emergency administration due to treaty violations. Remain calm and comply with all directives. Han Bin slammed his fist against the console. They planned this all along. In New York, Ambassador Park Ji-woo had been in an early morning meeting with United Nations officials when the attack began. Now she found herself being marched through the corridors of the UN building, flanked by 4 armed Council security forces. Their black armor gleamed under the fluorescent lights as they led her toward the main chamber. This is a violation of diplomatic protocol, Ji-woo protested. I demand to speak with Director Morrow immediately. The guard to her right, a reptilian species with scaled skin, simply pushed her forward without responding. In the General Assembly Hall, Council representatives had gathered Earth's highest-ranking politicians. A large holographic image of Director Morrow dominated the center of the room. People of Earth, Morrow's voice boomed. Your government has been engaged in illegal weapons development and unauthorized space exploration in direct violation of Council treaty provisions. The image shifted to show what appeared to be secret human military facilities. Ji-woo recognized the images. They were research centers working on adapting Council technology for human use, all perfectly legal under the treaty she had helped negotiate. Ambassador Park, Morrow continued, his 4 arms gesturing dramatically, has been identified as the primary architect of this conspiracy against the Council. Ji-woo was pushed forward into the view of cameras that were broadcasting this scene worldwide. It came from Han Bin's network on Earth. It's reliable, Taeho confirmed. The convoy is carrying mineral ore from the Mars mines. The Council is stripping our system of resources. Their resistance cell had grown from the original 800 colonists to include refugees from Mars and escaped prisoners from Earth. They had spent the first year simply surviving, repairing life support, growing food in hydroponic space, and avoiding detection. The second year, they began to gather intelligence and salvage equipment. Now, they were fighting back. 3 ships, Tahoe continued. Minimal escort. We take the smallest transport and disappear before reinforcements arrive. On Earth, Defense Director Choi Han-bin now operated from an abandoned subway tunnel beneath the ruins of Seoul. Parts of the city had been destroyed during the initial resistance to the occupation. Council forces had made examples of those who fought back. Han-bin's underground network extended across the planet. They communicated using old radio technology and hand-delivered messages, methods the Council considered too primitive to monitor closely. His current focus was on a Council research facility that had been established in what was once a university campus. "What are they doing in there?" he asked the young woman who had just returned from a reconnaissance mission. "They're studying us," she replied, placing a stolen data tablet on the table. "Taking humans for medical examinations, but not returning them. This facility is collecting genetic samples and running tests." Han-bin scrolled through the stolen files. "They're trying to identify our adaptability factors, what makes humans so quick to innovate and adjust to new environments." A messenger arrived, breathing hard from running through the tunnels. "Sir, we've just received word from our contact in the detention center. Ambassador Park is being transferred tomorrow." Han-bin looked up sharply. "Where to?" "Off-planet. They're taking her to a Council prison station." Han-bin's face hardened. "We can't let that happen. Alert all cells in the region. We move tonight." In the high-security detention center outside what was once Beijing, Ambassador Park Ji-woo sat in her cell, as she had for the past 3 years. The small room contained only a bed, toilet, and sink. The walls were bare except for a Council emblem painted above the door, a constant reminder of her captors. Ji-woo had lost weight, and her once black hair now showed streaks of gray, but her eyes remained sharp and observant. She had spent her imprisonment studying the guards, learning their routines, and building relationships with those who seemed less hostile to humans. One guard in particular, Security Officer Yoon Min-ho, had been assigned to her section for the past 8 months. He was from a species that had joined the Council only 50 years ago, and Ji-woo had sensed his discomfort with certain Council policies. "You're being transferred tomorrow," Min-ho said quietly as he delivered her evening meal. Council Central Station. Ji-woo's heart sank. Few humans sent to off-world facilities ever returned. "I always thought the Council stood for something better," Min-ho continued, his voice barely audible. "My people joined believing we would be part of a grand community. Instead, we became servants, just like they want to do with humans." He glanced nervously at the camera in the corner, then slipped something under her food tray, a small access key. "The camera will malfunction at 200 hours, he whispered. "The south exit has minimal security." That night, as the facility's lights dimmed for the sleep cycle, Ji-woo waited, clutching the key in her hand. When the tiny light on the camera went dark, she moved quickly, using the key to unlock her cell door. The corridors were dimly lit as she made her way south, pressing herself against walls when she heard approaching footsteps. She passed cells containing other human prisoners, but couldn't risk freeing them without compromising her escape. As she reached the south exit, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Ji-woo froze, certain she had been discovered. Then explosions rocked the building, and the power flickered. The door in front of her burst open, revealing a team of masked humans in dark clothing. The leader removed his mask, revealing a face Ji-woo hadn't seen in 3 years. "Director Choi," she gasped. "Ambassador," Han-bin nodded. "We need to move quickly. The diversion won't last long." As they escaped into the night, Ji-woo saw fighting throughout the compound. The resistance had grown far stronger than she had imagined possible. "There's someone I need to find," She told Hanbin, a guard named Yoon Minho. He helped me. We'll try, Hanbin promised as they reached the waiting vehicles. But right now, we need to get you to safety. Captain Lee has made contact from the asteroid belt. The Resistance is ready to move to the next phase. The massive Council Station Prima, once a symbol of alien authority, now bore the scars of battle. Sections of its outer hull were blackened from weapons fire, and emergency force fields contained breaches in its once perfect lotus-shaped structure. Inside the Grand Council chambers, an unprecedented meeting was about to begin. Ambassador Park Ji-woo entered first, her steps measured and confident despite the wounds still healing from months of fighting. Gone was the formal diplomatic uniform from years ago, replaced by a practical outfit that allowed freedom of movement. Behind her came Captain Lee Tae-ho, his asteroid base fighters having played a crucial role in the space campaign. Defense Director Choi Han-bin followed, leading a team of Earth's resistance commanders. Most surprising to the council members waiting nervously at their seats were the three non-human figures who entered with the humans. Representatives from species that had defected from the council during the conflict, including Security Officer Yoon Minho, whose insider knowledge had proven invaluable. Director Morrow sat at the head of the council table, his blue skin now pale with stress, his forearms no longer gesturing with confidence but fidgeting anxiously. You demanded this meeting, Morrow said, trying to maintain an authoritative tone. The council grants you this audience as a gesture of peace. Ji-woo smiled without warmth. You misunderstand, Director. This is not an audience. This is a reckoning. She activated a projection device. Images appeared around the chamber. Council ships attacking Earth cities, files documenting resource theft from human territories, medical reports of experiments conducted on human subjects. For 300 cycles, the Council has built its empire through deception. Ji-woo continued. You identify species with potential, pretend to welcome them, then subjugate them when they are vulnerable. These are serious accusations, another council member protested. They are facts, Han-bin corrected. Facts we have broadcast to every world in council space. This revelation caused visible alarm among the council members. Their controlled narrative was crumbling. The history of the council has been one of fear, Tae-ho added. You fear species that might one day surpass you. Humans adapt quickly. We solve problems in ways you never considered. This frightened you. Yoon Minho stepped forward. My people experienced the same treatment 50 years ago. We were promised equality but received servitude. The difference is that humans fought back more effectively than anyone expected. For the past 6 months, a coordinated human resistance had targeted council operations across the solar system. The tide had turned when Captain Lee's forces captured a council communication hub, allowing them to decode transmissions and predict movements. With that advantage, combined with innovative human tactics, they had systematically dismantled the occupation. Most decisively, Earth scientists had developed hybrid technologies that merged human ingenuity with council systems, creating weapons and defenses the council had never encountered before. Your empire was built on lies, Ji-woo said. And now those lies have been exposed to every species under your control. Director Morrow slammed his hand on the table. What do you want? Revenge? To destroy everything we've built? No, Ji-woo replied calmly. We want transformation. She outlined the terms: the dissolution of the current council structure, the establishment of a new alliance based on genuine equality, the return of resources taken from all member worlds, and trials for those who had authorized atrocities. Your species is still primitive, one council member scoffed. You lack the experience to govern galactic affairs. We lack your corruption, Han-bin countered. And we have allies who share our vision. On cue, a communication screen activated, showing leaders of 7 formerly subjugated species who had joined the human-led coalition. The old council is finished, Ji-woo declared. You can join the new alliance as equals, or you can stand aside. But the days of council supremacy are over. As if to emphasize her point, a series of explosions echoed through the station, the controlled demolition of the Council's security systems. 3 weeks later, Ji-woo stood at a viewport on the station, now renamed Unity Point. Workers from a dozen species were removing the old Council emblems and installing new symbols representing the Alliance. Taeho joined her, watching the activity. "Did you ever imagine this outcome when you first came here as ambassador?" Ji-woo shook her head. "I believed the Council's promises then. I couldn't see what lay beneath. And now we're rebuilding galactic society," Taeho said. "It seems impossible." "Humans specialize in doing the impossible," Ji-woo replied with a smile. "That's what frightened them in the first place." Han Bin approached with a data tablet. "The last Council holdouts have surrendered on Saturn's moon. Earth is fully liberated, and the new Alliance Charter?" Ji-woo asked. "Ready for ratification. 28 species have already signed." Outside the viewport, a fleet of ships arrived, the first diplomatic delegations from independent worlds that had watched the conflict from afar. They came seeking membership in the new alliance, impressed by the species that had overthrown the ancient council. "They expected us to be conquered," Ji-woo observed. "Instead, we showed the galaxy another path." "Humanity's path," Han Bin said. "No," Ji-woo corrected him, watching representatives from dozens of worlds entering the station. "A path we all walk together, as equals."